This episode is brought to you by Zarzar Law. I'm investigative journalist Molly Barrows. For years, I've covered the stories that made headlines in Northwest Florida and all along the Gulf Coast. Murders, missing persons, and mysteries of all kinds. These cases are far from over for many victims because the full story has yet to surface. Join me for Gulf Coast Confidential, where I dive into the saltier side of the South and expose the lies, greed, and corruption that often weighs down the truth. It's time to turn the tide and get a shot at justice. Hey, y'all, and welcome to the Gulf Coast Confidential podcast. If you haven't already, we would love it if you would please like and subscribe, and we'd also love to hear from you. Please leave a comment or a suggestion about what we're talking about today or any case that we haven't covered that you might be interested in listening to Pam and I talk about. There's always a what the feezy case, as we call them,
Yes.
breaking, brewing, bubbling up right here in beautiful Northwest Florida and well beyond the Gulf Coast. So we certainly don't have the market on crazy around here.
No, we don't.
But we do have some crazy cases.
Yes, we do.
And today's episode, we're going to be doing an update on the August Borden situation there in Tuscumbia, Alabama. Of course, it's awful enough that August was critically injured with head injuries, so severe that he had to be taken by life flight to UAB Hospital in Birmingham on August 19th. But it happened. When it happened, he was at school, surrounded by people who claimed to care about him, were responsible for his well-being, like his teammates and his coaches. But those are the very people, for the most part, that his family's not getting straight answers from. And here we are a month later, and August is not only still healing from his traumatic injuries and undergoing tests to determine how long-lasting they are, but his family doesn't even have the option of knowing fully what happened to him because they're being threatened and criticized for simply asking questions about what happened.
Or being upset about it. You know, I mean, you wouldn't be normal if you said, well, that's cost going to school. You know, I sent my son to school, and we know he did not go to school looking like that.
No.
And he came back. And like I said, we've all been around people that have been in sports and accidents and stuff. That is not from a fall. And I think that is what the doctors at UAB said. Well, as a matter of fact, it is what they said.
That it was not consistent with a fall.
Right.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. But there's we got a lot of fraganackle BS going on in the community with this, that, and the other. Can you imagine people getting put out or upset or trying to come for you when you're in the middle of basically grieving what happened there to go, that's my child. I'm responsible for them, but I sent them to school. You got a bunch of coaches responsible for them and teachers and stuff. But anyway, it ain't right.
No, it's not. We're going to dive more into that in just a minute, but we want to update you on another story that we've been following here on Gulf Coast Confidential. In fact, we broke this story. This is about the embattled plastic surgeon, Dr. Ben Brown. If you're not familiar with this case, you can catch up. It's titled Dr. Ben Brown on our playlist on the Gulf Coast Confidential YouTube channel. So we've got about 7 or 8 episodes on Dr. Ben Brown. And for those who have been following, then you know why he is embattled. Dr. Ben Brown is charged with negligent manslaughter for the death of his wife, Hillary Brown, who died November of 2023 at his office, Restore Plastic Surgery in the Tiger Point area of Gulf Breeze, right here on the Gulf Coast. And basically, he was performing several procedures on her after hours, right before the Thanksgiving holiday. The office had been closed to the regular patient crowd, if you will. Ben Brown was there with a few other employees. She began to go under. She coded, according to the Department of Health, Florida's Department of Health. It appeared that it was a lidocaine overdose, caused her heart to stop. They had her on life support for about a week, and then she was not showing signs of life, so they ended up pulling the plug, if you will, and she passed, and he faced charges. His license has also been partially restricted by the Florida Department of Health because in the wake of her death, a number of patients came forward, and I took their stories to the public. Necrotic gaping wounds, unauthorized BBLs, a whole slew of accusations, all of which Dr. Brown denies, including the death of his wife and a lot of these complaints. Well, I say all that to say this. This is the update. So on Friday, Ben Brown had a hearing. He's also facing a medical malpractice suit, a lawsuit from Wendy Carden of Pensacola, who says that she also went to him for routine plastic surgery treatments, if you will, but the surgery went so wrong. She was left in a supine position, laying down for 9 hours, wasn't properly moved. It caused permanent nerve damage to her hand. Not to mention, he intentionally, according to her lawsuit, put these mesh implant things in her body. She said she didn't want anything like that in there. Thought that they had agreed to it beforehand. She never signed a consent form for them. And apparently, according to her lawsuit, those were placed in her body and they caused a slew of problems. So she now has, according to her, permanent debilitating injuries, not only from him performing surgical procedures that she didn't want, but also in the way that he handled the surgery that left her hand damaged permanently, she says. So the suit was filed in 2022. It's been going on for some time. There were other defendants that were named in this lawsuit as well, but Ben Brown, being the surgeon, is the primary one. And according to the plaintiff's attorney, he has not been wanting to settle. He has not been wanting to end this lawsuit, whereas some of the other defendants have been open to that. So they are finally preparing for trial. It's scheduled to start for trial the beginning of December. They're going to pick a jury. They've also got mediation scheduled for October, where they could potentially mediate a settlement and it not go to trial. So that still remains to be seen. But if they don't come to an agreement, then it will go to trial. But this past week, they had a hearing on Ben Brown's motion for a change of venue because he feels like that essentially my reporting in particular has made it impossible for him to get a fair trial. And the plaintiff's attorney, Wendy Carden's attorney, argued that that's ridiculous because there's a quote unquote plethora of news articles out there about what happened, and people anywhere are going to recognize him, not just in particular in Escambia County. So it was an interesting hearing.
Yeah,
you were there listening in.
Yeah, I was sitting there and we were listening in to it.
It was a Zoom hearing.
Yeah, Zoom, yeah. And all of a sudden I hear Ben Brown's attorney going, well, I noticed Miss Barrows is here and I respect her work and stuff like that. And I'm like, where are we going with this?
I know.
And the judge is basically like, don't worry your pretty little head about that, and he moves it along. And the guy does it like a total of 3 times. And the judge even tells him, you have mentioned her 3 times. She has nothing to do with, basically litigating this back and forth, or tell me what you want. And so then even at the end, I thought, now he's been scolded enough, but nope. At the end, he had to try it again and go, well, can you tell me what Miss Barrows is going to do? Or
can you
whatever?
ask her? Can you ask her to tell you if she's going to report on it?
Yeah.
And I'm just right there. It was so awkward.
Crazy.
It was, and I was just, because the audio was muted, my audio, but you could see all of us on this Zoom hearing. So I just was like trying to cover my mouth, not to like make any kind of reaction,
really.
Yeah,
you did good. But I mean, it was almost like at the end, he was like, Daddy, make her do this or something. But I mean, this is why we have reporters and investigations in the press. This, along with the case we're going to talk about later with August, this is where the narrative and wrong information and people not holding people's feet to the fire. Think about this. If you hadn't have gone in there, and I remember filming you there and thinking to myself, this is big.
In front of his office, right there at Gulf Coast Plastic Surgery.
Because you had on flip-flops and you're like, well, I don't know. And I was like, no, let's go.
I did. We went out there. That was right when the Santa Rosa Sheriff's Office launched their investigation into her death because it was untimely. 33 years old, mother of 3. These children were by a previous marriage. Ben Brown also had children by a previous marriage, but the 2 of them had recently been married. By all accounts, including her family, it was something of a toxic relationship, a lot of fights in and out of the office. She was an office manager there. So you and I went down to the office in Tiger Point, basically to get some pictures and some video. People were leaving messages and flowers and plants. It was, like I said, November, so it was right before the holidays. Somebody had left a poinsettia, or I'm sorry, a poinsettia plant right there. I know. Thinking of Key West, I guess, right. Poinsettias. But at any rate, they had the poinsettia plant that had been left there with a note saying, condolences about Hillary. And you were like, let's do a video. So there I am in my all good in the woods, Rocky Mountain sweatshirt hoodie and my jeans and my flip-flops going, hey, y'all, there's an investigation. We're following this. The Santa Rosa Sheriff's Office is looking into Dr. Ben Brown and the death of his wife and what did happen. And that was before we knew anything about the lidocaine and just this. Anyway, it's a very layered story. Like I said, if you're interested in following this is going to continue to be something that we talk about here on Gulf Coast Confidential. Ultimately, just so you know, the judge denied Ben Brown's motion for a change of venue, essentially agreeing with the plaintiff's attorney. But from the beginning, listening to that hearing, it sounded to me like it was an uphill battle from the get-go. Not that he wasn't giving, he gave them all an opportunity to present their arguments, but he walked Ben Brown's attorney through it and said, here's the statute that you're using to say that this is why there should be a change of venue. He said it's not the normal statute in Florida that you would use to say that you're concerned about an unfair trial. He said, so explain to me why you're using this statute. And they went through this conversation. And basically at the end of it, after Ben Brown's attorney had made his pitch, referring to me several times throughout the process, which was awkward and unusual for me. But at any rate, also, I think I have to say I was a little bit tickled by it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was like, heaven's sakes, buddy, you got.
Well, it made me feel super important.
I bet so.
I mean, and I was like, I shouldn't be this important. The real issue is this poor lady who's got these injuries that she's still trying to recover from, Miss Carden. And then the issue is whether or not, Ben Brown has every right to say he didn't have anything to do with it, and that's not his fault, if you will. And that's up to, a jury to decide. It's up to the court to handle this case. I am using my right in the Constitution as a member of the press to report on it. And to your point earlier, whether it's Ben Brown, if it's August Borden, whatever the situation is and whatever reputation people may want to assign to the media, the bottom line is if you're doing your job as a professional and doing it right and doing it within the law, it is important because people will do things when no one's watching. It's why the fourth estate is called the watchdog, because if that watchdog isn't there doing a professional and honest job, then people who are not professional and honest can get away with doing things that will hurt all of us.
Right.
So that's why I think it's important to be there. And I, for one, of course, am glad that the judge denied his change of venue motion. But then next week, this is what I wanted to let you know, too. We're going to be following up on the Florida Department of Health. I mentioned that they had restricted Ben Brown's license back in May of 2023. As a result of what happened to Hillary Brown. They also spoke to two of his former patients who I had interviewed in a story that ended up winning multiple investigative awards. And those two patients, Jane Hawkins and Brandy Fitzsimmons, tell me that they were also interviewed by the Florida Department of Health, and they're referred to in their initials in this order restricting his ability to practice medicine to basically ask to be under a license, the supervision of a licensed doctor in a licensed facility. Because what we're learning about Ben Brown, even though it's just two patients that are mentioned in this order restricting his license, this, y'all, is a very layered story, but there were literally dozens of patients who've come out of the woodwork, dozens of others that I did not include in my reporting, but have shared their stories with me saying, please don't use my name, but here's my medical records. We've read the diary of one of those patients here talking about just literally pus pouring from her nipple like a waterfall. And it's similar complaints from all of these patients, and not all of them are addressed in this, but there is a lot of interest in this case. There's a lot of interest for all of those reasons as to what will happen with Ben Brown's medical license. And that's what's going to happen next week. This is part of the process for the Florida Department of Health to determine because they made a recommendation, yes, we're restricting his license right now in an emergency order, but then he has rights through a legal process to fight these allegations and say, hey, Department of Health, you're wrong, and here's why. Well, that's what's happening next week. The legal hearings from the Department of Administrative Hearings, which is the legal branch of the Florida Department of Health. They're hosting these hearings that are scheduled to start September 16th and will last several days. And then the state will present their case. We're going to be hearing from some of these victims that I talked to. We're also going to be hearing evidence about what happened with Hillary. The Department of Health said that she was essentially allowed to apply her own tumescent solution, which is something to help knock you out, put you in a twilight zone for her procedures that she was going to receive, which was like a tiny tummy tuck, some fat put in her lips, and then also a little bit around her eyes. She was just beautiful. I don't know that she even really needed all that. But yeah, so she mixed her own solution. She took it. She even sutured herself, and she's not a licensed medical professional. And then when she did code, when her heart stopped and she went into cardiac arrest, he told staff to wait, according to the Department of Health's order, somewhere between 10 to 20 minutes before they ever called 911. By that time, her breathing was shallow, and essentially, ultimately, she was considered brain dead. And again, Ben Brown denies all of these accusations. He has accused me repeatedly of making this personal and this being unfair reporting and me targeting him. None of that is true, but it is the mantra that so many people who find themselves in a position of being called out and their feet held to the fire for actions that they've either admitted or been accused of, that is the telltale sign to me. If I've heard it once, I've heard it a million times, kill the messenger kind of a thing.
Right.
But at any rate, so that's coming up next week. I will be at those hearings. Pam and I will be talking about what comes out of those hearings, whether or not the state of Florida decides to permanently restrict, revoke, suspend, whatever it may be. There's a whole slew of options that they have for a permanent penalty if they decide one is even warranted. Right. It could come out that they say he's done nothing wrong whatsoever, not related to the death of his wife, not related to his treatment and care of patients. So we shall see what is happening, but that is where we stand on Ben Brown, y'all.
Yep, and Ben Brown. So we've got coming up, it's the medical malpractice with Wendy Carden that's going to be starting on December the 1st.
That's exactly right.
And then in the interim, we've got these DOA hearings or Department of Health type things.
Yes.
So, I mean, he's going to wear himself out. He's busier than being a tar bucket. I know. He's going to make himself tired before he has to go for Hillary.
I know. Well, and let's not forget about, like you said, Hillary, because that's coming up in October. I want to say it's October 13th. I got to double check that, but I'm pretty sure it's like October 12th or 13th
right around
that his next court date is. Basically checking in to see where he is and whether or not his defense team is ready to go to trial on the negligent manslaughter trial. This has been pushed back multiple times since his arrest in 2 years ago. Well, I think it was last year. It was right after his license was suspended. It was about a month or so after that. So it's been about a year, not quite a year and a half since his arrest, and it's been pushed back multiple times. So we will see if they're going to be close to ready to start trial. I don't think we're going to see it start in October. But once it does start, I imagine you're going to see a lot of interest in people covering that case.
Yeah, it's going to roll like that. And may I just offer a little footnote here?
Yes.
Okay. A BBL is a Brazilian butt lift.
Yes.
I didn't know that till
I
started reading this stuff.
I didn't know what necrosis was until I started reporting on Ben Brown. But as a pharmacist, you knew. But I did find that just in covering these medical-related stories, I really had to learn a lot. And even with August's case, you're trying to understand the difference between what injuries look like from a fall, what injuries look like from an assault, being manhandled essentially. And then speaking of that, we have, and we can touch on it when we update August's case as well, but the dentist guy that's weighing in, the team doctor that wants to throw up x-rays that don't even belong to August and refer and imply that it's somehow connected and minimize August injuries because of some random x-ray of some other guy that has nothing to do with August's case.
Something he just thought about, like, let me throw this in here to muddy the waters and has absolutely nothing to do with anything, but I'm going to put and we'll talk about it in a little while, but I mean, it's just that entitlement to like, I said it and I've already told you people how it is, and I'm just going to flam, rim around and make posts on the internet, disingenuous at that, and try to shove it down your throat, use pictures of another buddy of mine that's already passed away to try to legitimize myself. That was the most disingenuous, unprofessional. That man is probably going to be talking to Alabama's Department of Health and Medical Board and Dental Board.
I know, that's interesting. Well, I think we are just about ready to dive in and turn our attention to the latest on the August Borden case. But before we do, we want to thank our sponsor and advertiser, Joe Zarzar of Zarzar Law. He's a personal injury attorney right here in Pensacola. He will take on the bad guys for you. If you are hurt through no fault of your own and you're trying to get compensation, whether it's from an insurance company or some kind of business or institution that is bigger than the average person, if you will, he can get the answers. He can find justice for you. He will fight for you. He has handled numerous cases that we've covered here on Gulf Coast Confidential. Of course, one that we mention a lot and are continuing to follow is Dr. Thomas Sheknowski, who is accused of mistakenly removing a man's liver instead of his spleen. That's another one that you can find on our playlist under Dr. Thomas Sheknowski's name. But at any rate, he's handling that case on behalf of the widow. He's suing the hospital, the surgeon, folks that were involved in that fiasco, if you will. And then there are other cases that he's continuing to follow, cases of medical malpractice. He's also consulted and represented a number of patients who have accused Ben Brown of medical malpractice. A DUI case that's just horrific, where a man was hit allegedly by a drunk driver and on his motorcycle, and he was drugged for about a block. And so at any rate, there is no case too big or too small that Joe Zarzar won't take on. And it all starts with a call. So if you have something that happens to you, God forbid, or someone that you love, the first thing you do, call Joe Zarzar and make an appointment for a consultation, and they can tell you the next steps.
Definitely. Somebody will talk for you. Sometimes we don't know what to say, but He's done it plenty.
He certainly has. All right. Well, now we're going to get into the meat of our story that we're talking about today, talking about August Borden. And, last time we talked about how the fact that this investigation had been turned over from Tuscumbia City Schools, which is the school district there, as well as the police department in that area. It's now all been handed over to the Madison County District Attorney's Office, which is a larger Alabama community about 2 hours away. And August's family is hoping that perhaps through this investigation, where authorities are not connected ideally outside of their small town, they're hopefully not connected to the school's football program, which I think is the family's feeling and many others in the community, that it's somehow this desire on the part of local school officials and the coaches to protect this football program, because what happened to August is all centered around that. So they're hoping that Madison County will give them some answers and they can find justice for their boy. But in the meantime, they're really having to just defend themselves from threats and criticism from people who are just angry that they won't be quiet and go away and just accept this excuse that he fell.
Well, I mean, it was boggled, whatever, from the beginning. The place I stick is that there are 4 coaches there, and the school only has like 400, let's just say 40 people, and that's being high, there from the 9th to the 12th grade. And you got 4 coaches with the football boys. And I mean, coaches, if you're interspersed in them, let's just say half the people in that play, like out of 100, 50 people play football, and there's 4 of y'all. Their school, it has a ratio of 14 to 1. There's 1 teacher for every 14 students. Other places, that's about probably like 28 to 1. So we got that. And we got these people, it's not their first time being a coach. It's not their first time seeing boys, as August's dad said, pester each other. I mean, you're playing football. If you can't take a little pestering, I mean, come on now. I mean, even in girls softball, we took pestering. But, back and forth. But also, I'm like, there's that. Then nobody can give the same account. A lie is a lie. The truth is the truth. And if they would have started with the truth, it feels good to do what's good. It feels good to do what's right. And it's honorable. These folks went into like a cover-up mode, or huddle of secrecy, as I call it, what I've been dealing with before, and won't get into that.
Oh, by the way, hold that thought, because folks who've been listening and following our coverage on August, even though we reference it, we don't reference it every time. But whenever Pam mentions that, when she says, or one of us says, yeah, Pam's been through this before with her former brother-in-law, you can catch up on those episodes. That episode is called Confessions in the Field House. It really outlines through lots of documentation from the school district here's own records, police reports, you name it. We really dive into allegations that Pam's former brother-in-law faced when he was accused of an inappropriate relationship, which makes me kind of vomit in my mouth to say that, because he was a 48-year-old man at the time being accused of sexting a 13-year-old girl.
13, 14.
Yeah, 14-year-old girl. So it was a girl in his science class, his 9th grade science class that he taught at Pensacola High School. So at any rate, when we talk about these allegations about dealing with schools, this is not a sexual abuse case, but this is about dealing with administrators who circle the wagons when they're trying to put out a fire, if you will. Pam has dealt with it, and those are some of the episodes that you can check out for more details on that. So when we reference those cases, we're talking about Confessions in the Field House. There's also Murder and Madness, which covers that some as well.
Right. And I've been dealing with it for 15 years, and I simply refused to put it down because it was wrong. But had that happened, like in this day and time, it would be a whole different story. And I believe my sister would still be here. So there's all that. But I've seen this before. We've seen it. We've seen the people that will lie. You know how I say fried, died, and laid aside. They will lie and risk their career, their future, their family, their everything. So they got a lot at risk. So they all huddle up and go, here's our lie. And that is how it starts. We know that if people would have said the truth from the beginning, because one of the administrators kind of slipped up and told August's daddy the truth in the beginning.
Yes, I know. And for folks who maybe haven't listened to some of our coverage, if you're just now joining us for the first time on August Borden's case, just in a nutshell, he was at football practice. He'd been there since early the morning of August 19th. They had been weightlifting towards the end of the day. His mama was getting ready to leave the house to come pick him up. This is a little bit after 4. The next thing you know, she's getting a call from another parent that he's being taken by life flight to UAB Birmingham with severe head injuries. She and August's daddy and also also her husband, August's stepdad, start asking questions, what's going on. And August's daddy talks to Patrick Malone, who is the head coach for the football program. He talks to another school district employee. He talks to any number of other school officials, including the superintendent, Russ Tate. That's for Tuscumbia City Schools. And they're all taking different attitudes, if you will. But the head coach told him that he spoke to the student, who we are not naming because he has not been charged. But if you follow this at all on social media, his name is not hard to find. And apparently he is has a star playing position, if you will, on the football team. And people have been proud with his performance, at least the school administration, it seems, and the football team. But he's the one that's essentially accused of putting his hands on August. And he tells the coach, according to Patrick Malone's story, to the dad, that he kind of describes it. He doesn't use the word horseplay, but basically, like you said, pestering, messing around. And this young man put his hands on August and, quote unquote, he fell. So I guess at 6'1" and 180 pounds, this particular player is perhaps not as strong as I might have thought he would if he had to drop a 160-pound ninth grade boy. But at any rate, that's essentially the first story that the dad was given. But when he gets to the hospital, he's intubated for 2 days, fighting for his life. The doctor said he was 2 inches within dying and 1 inch within becoming confined to a wheelchair. So at any rate, thank goodness he's recovered from that, but he is not recovered per se. He's still having issues with his vision. He's still being evaluated perhaps for facial surgery. This is according to his family. So that's in essence what happened. But the family and the dad in particular talked to multiple people right off the bat. And within a few hours, they knew the name of the young man that they felt like had put his hands on August. And then other names have come up that perhaps there were other teammates that were involved that, according to other folks, all but assaulted this kid, if not assaulted him. I'm not an expert. I don't know. There's no police report, but this is the accounts that's been given to the family and what they're hearing. And it's consistent with what doctors said about August's injuries in the hospital, that these were not consistent with the fall, that this was consistent with an assault, essentially.
Right. Well, you see where the waters get murky here. If you've got the town oral surgeon that is also the team doctor and is also Deshler Proud, Deshler Generations, whatever, and he gets on there and puts a post on there and goes, in my 33 years of whatever. And then here's the other part. He intimated that he said he got up at 5:30 in the morning to go drive down to UAB, which is in Birmingham. So that's about a 115-mile drive. And he's going to go check on the Deshler team player. You could have checked on him when he was right there. You know?
Could have called his family and said, how's August doing? May I go see him? But that's not the point. Truth wasn't the point.
Nobody seemed to care at the school when it was happening. So anyway, he doesn't see him because he's already gone home. But then he has a picture of a skull and stuff, like an x-ray, and saying, in my 33 years, this is what I've seen, and it can happen from an unprotected fall. And then he puts 3 peer studies. I'm a scientist, and I do that better than art. But when you start saying, here's a peer study, you don't just go, here's a peer study. Here is the peer study. It is called blah, 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 blah. And it can't be from 1945. We're living right now in 2025. But anyway, he puts that, trying to dazzle them with BS. You know, and then the pièce de résistance is the picture he has up there of August and his friend. And it's a picture where his friend came over to visit August. And he goes,
after he was out of the hospital.
Right. So, because I put that candy there because they say he likes candy like that was sour candy and stuff. And that it's so good to see August smiling, like he's standing right there in the living room, like he took that picture. So all this is wrong. It's disingenuous. It is a violation of a child's medical information and rights. It is not professional, and it was not his very best thinking. But
no, and he also posted about a snake and implied that was Kristen, August's mom.
Yeah, I don't know what he's trying to imply. He's acting like
that's the way I took it.
He took it. He says mom and them. And,
with a picture of a snake.
Yeah, and some baby snakes.
God.
Baby rattlers. So, I mean, and then
all because she's upset over her son being hurt so severely. That is so normal. And I think that's part of it too. Not only was it inappropriate for him to misrepresent his treatment of August and imply that the kid's doing fine, and people are making a mountain out of a molehill. It's just a representation of part of this bigger pushback from parts of the community there in Tuscumbia that said, how dare you? We're continuing on to play our games. We're continuing to cheer on our team. We're continuing to act like nothing really happened. Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
We said he fell. Why are you making a big deal about it? To the point where other schools are stepping up to show their support for August. There was one school that wore big yellow ribbons, the kind that look like breast cancer awareness that are pink with the little loop and the little tails at the end.
His number.
They were yellow with his number, and they wore those. And August's own team, Deshler High School Tigers, weren't even going to do that until that team did. And then, like you said, they put the little yellow stickers
like
that were no bigger than Mickey Mouse sticker that you have there.
I call those garage sale stickers, like where you put the price on something, and they're yellow and they're back here. I mean, what is so hard about leaning into being kind to this child that did not go to school looking like that? So we got this dentist out here practicing medicine from afar, even, I guess, opining from the peanut gallery. And then when August's daddy has to go to the police department, which is a few days later, and starts talking to them about this, about August and his face and his being knocked out and being this close to death, they're like, he's like, I want to see the report or know about they're like, what report? They told us at the school he fell. Now, I've never known police work to be like that you go up to the coach or whomever there and go, so what happened here? What are you even there for?
Right.
That was wrong. That's wrong. Mark's wrong. Dr. Mark's wrong. Lying's wrong. And I'm sorry to interrupt right here, but the part that haunts me is when Coach Patrick Malone goes, well, I love my Southern men. I love my Southern folks. These are my folks. I love my Alabama folks. I'm disappointed in the ones that won't tell the truth. But when he's basically saying, well, the boy came and told me, he said, Coach grabbed him up, bear hugged him, so now we're going to put cute stuff in here because ain't nothing cute about none of
Trying to downplay and minimize.
I call it the big spoon, little spoon. Big spoon gets around him, and then he says he went, he gasped, okay, what? And then I couldn't hold him. Now, this is their big one. This is their boy that all of Tuscumbia is turning upside down for this, I guess. Tell the truth. That is what they told his daddy happened. Now, after that, if they would have told the truth, talk to that boy and the coaches with the truth. See, the truth didn't start at anything.
Because the truth would have meant changing up that football program. Apparently, it would have meant but based on what we know, I'm not saying for sure that this kid did anything wrong, innocent until proven guilty. He hasn't even been charged, but he is under investigation. And before it was transferred over to Madison County, there in Tuscumbia, they had said that they were basically putting it in juvenile court and looking to charge this kid with a third-degree misdemeanor. So at any rate, that is where it stands as far as him being the prime suspect. It's not being just completely taken out of social media. But to your point, I feel like that there's so many people that just want to minimize this. That wouldn't have even happened at all because they just don't want to affect the football program is the way it's coming across. And so the family raising hell and demanding answers is putting a kink in that.
Right. And they're so sweet and kind.
And they're really not raising hell. It's really more people around them saying, hey, we're demanding justice. I just use that as a simple way to say there's a lot of momentum around this. But that's a very normal response.
And if they were, it wouldn't be bad. But they're reasonable. They're asking for questions, and they are. I can say this too from experience. They are gobsmacked that people are even being, taking them on about this. If it was their child, wouldn't you want everybody to march it through and go, what? Regardless, nobody's saying anything about him. We're saying, tell us the truth so we can tell the doctors so we can get our son and stepson the treatment that he needs. And so I don't know why everybody's averse to that, but as the band plays on, like on the Titanic, we got some teachers that are like, get me off this algorithm. I'm tired of hearing about this. So you're a teacher there, and you're tired of hearing about the boy that almost died and did for a few seconds, because he had to be resuscitated and brought back. And you're tired of that. I'm sorry. That was not your very best moment saying that. And maybe they didn't mean it like that. I don't know. But, the thing is, look at that child in the face, the
swelling, the
face,
bruises,
skull
the injuries.
And face fractures. He can't even hardly open his left eye.
Right.
And then he's sleeping most of the time. He's timid. Don't you know this little guy is aware of what's happening in his community, and he knows that people are distancing themselves from him, and he's probably internalizing some of that, and it's not his fault. I'll tell you whose
No.
fault it is not. It's August's fault.
I know.
All.
I thought about that too. And I think just to paint a picture for folks, this is a small town. Talking about a population under 10,000. The whole population of Deshler High School from 9th to 12th grade is 434, 435 students. Everybody knows everybody within the town, within the school, within days, not just the family, everybody was hearing the same names and what happened. But they were put on lockdown. The coaches were like, you won't be talking about this to the other teammates. And it seemed like between the school administrators on Tuscumbia City Schools level, as well as the school principal, as well as these coaches, all circled the wagon against the family. And then you had other people in the community that were like, yeah, what they said, because we want to continue to cheer on our sports team and our sports players that could potentially be wrapped up in this and keep on like we're not, like nothing ever happened. And I feel like that's what's so, what a shitty excuse, pardon my French. Do you know what I mean? Just because it's a football program, damn, is it that important? I mean, in looking up on, reading up on Deshler High School in Tuscumbia, one of their claims to fame was that Coach Bear Bryant of Alabama actually assisted coaching, did some assistant coaching there at Deshler High School way back in like 1935 when a friend of his, who the stadium actually is named after, Chapel, he was coaching for him and whatever else. But I tell you what in the world would Bear Bryant think of something like this?
Oh, Bear Bryant, he told those guys more than anything else, you are to remain classy. That was Bear Bryant's thing. He is like, I can find any old boy to carry a football like they're carrying a loaf of bread home to their mama. That's how he talked. But he was like, you are going to be classy when you represent the University of Alabama. And I'm the coach, And I mean, he was almost so stern like that. I mean, everybody had reverence for him. I mean, Alabama shut down the day he
was a winner and a gentleman. And
I love him so much.
Yeah, people loved him. They found a hero in him, I feel like.
Yeah, and he's sort of like a granddaddy too, when you're young like that. But and we have that, and then we've got all this other stuff going on.
Well, everybody knowing each other and going back to, the young man that they feel like is the person that put his hands on August. His father is notable and influential in the community. Again, small community. It's not necessarily hard to be that way when you're a successful businessman. That's not an indictment. But again, if you read the social media comments, this is a family that has apparently, according to some folks, financially supported the football program, financially supported. And if you do, like we talked about yesterday when you and I spent some time just researching all of this, I thought it was interesting. I wanted to find out exactly how much money is raised for the Deshler High School football program, just sports in general there in Tuscumbia, and they don't make that information readily available to the public. Basically, you can find the entire budget. You can find the salaries pay scale. If you've been there so many years or have such and such a degree, you're going to make X amount of dollars, but they don't list individual salaries. They don't say exactly how much of the budget goes to sports, but looking it up, like they're having to raise thousands of dollars each year for equipment. I mean, football helmets alone cost like, what, $350 they said? Or something like that. I don't remember, but it was a lot. Yeah. And everything costs money, and they're constantly asking for money. And I don't think that's unusual within any school system because nobody ever gets enough what they really need.
Right.
But, if you're this community wondering where the motivation is, why these school administrators and the coaches would rally around this particular student, it's also potentially if money is the motive, and I'm not saying it is, but if they're raising those questions, I went looking to see if this guy had donated a lot of money or how much money. And I will be following up on that during business hours, but it wasn't readily available online.
On the weekend.
Right. And from what I understand, I will have to specifically ask for it. Now, Florida, we have different sunshine laws. A lot of that's easy to find right there online. But at any rate, I feel like it's a small town. People know each other. Maybe there was just some winking and nodding that went on, said, we hate what happened to August, but him didn't mean to hurt him. We just need to protect him because we just kicked off the football program. He's doing pretty good. He might be scouted for a scholarship somewhere. His daddy helps out a lot. Let's just not rock the boat. I mean, that's the way it's coming across to a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's what I think people are concerned about. We don't know that. We're hopefully going to get some answers when Madison County District Attorney's Office looks into this. But, I understand also that the Borden family is also seeking legal protection, and who can blame them?
Right.
Because when you have this many people in positions of power that are working to provide inconsistent answers,
or non-answers, or just blowing you off and acting like, how dare you ask me to keep you in the loop about this near-death experience for your child, and just take exception to that and have such an ignorant approach when you are the superintendent of Tuscumbia schools there, and you're going to get mad and beat your chest like a gorilla, basically, and scold the dad for asking a question and say, I'm not going to tell you what I do day to day. He didn't ask you what you did day to day. He asked you how that happened to his child. That's what he asked you. And that man doing that, I guarantee you, he will be revisiting his words in court.
That was Russ Tate.
Yeah, that was Russ Tate. He'll hear that again, and all of us will know what he does or doesn't do on a daily. We know what he doesn't do is pursue this that he told the parents that he would do.
Right. Well, they're truly trying to, their reaction would indicate that they're trying to support this narrative that August fell.
Yeah.
Nothing to see here. We're going to keep playing. We're not going to necessarily, oh, you wore ribbons for August? Well, we'll get little yellow stickers. They're doing everything follow up. Oh, the daddy's calling again. I told you I'd get back with you. That is not how you would normally respond.
No.
You know, if there really was a student
Yeah.
injured. Yeah.
It's cry bullying. It's bullying. It's gaslighting. It is manipulation. It is wrong. It is good old boys gone really, really bad. You know, and I venture to say that most of the town does not believe like that. You know, that
I agree.
Most people, if you look at things, most people are like, my heart hurts for this young man. And August is not a clumsy looking little boy. You know, he is a fit, you know, like he's worked out and he did his training and stuff. Like I said last time, if he was going to fall, I bet you dollars to donuts, he'd land on his feet like a little cat.
Absolutely.
You know?
I know. Well, we were talking about words and manipulation and just the reaction of the coaches. And I want to share a quote that I found interesting. This is in a sports article that ran in the Times Daily, which covers news there in Tuscumbia. And this article ran August 30th, and it's titled, "A Long Week. Deshler Responds with Everything Swirling Around It," end quote. This article is basically celebrating a win that Deshler High School's football team had against a rival. And it's described as this momentous overcoming of all these challenges, and it gives the head coach, Patrick Malone, basically an unchallenged platform to spread the message that they are actually the victims, which I thought was, you know, I mentioned Ben Brown earlier talking about the messenger's the problem. Nobody would be complaining about my work if Molly hadn't been reporting on it. You know, she has a personal vendetta. None of that is true, but everybody wants to assign a personal reason because they don't necessarily want to take accountability.
Right.
This, I'm not saying that Patrick Malone is anything like Ben Brown because I don't know him. I've never covered anything about him really until this case. But when I hear this quote that I'm about to read for you, it just strikes me as like, oh, what a nice, interesting little spin this is. So basically, it's a quote from head coach Patrick Malone when the reporters, you know, basically saying, how is the team responding under all of this that's happened with August and the pressure from the community for answers. And he says, quote, "People have attacked us online and tried to divide our team. A lot of it has been very personal. There have been threats to my family, threats to my home, but it doesn't matter. We just continue to care for our kids, care for our program, and care for our town," end quote. And there are other quotes from him in this article that are along the same lines, basically saying, you know, we've been mistreated. We're carrying on. We're really struggling here under all this pressure. Well, your vision's not blurry. You're not having to see a facial specialist. You're not recovering, wondering if you'll ever even be able to play football again. Most likely not, because it's not worth the risk that you're going to have to take. Your picture's not being, I mean, and again, they probably are getting threats, and that's not right either.
No, that's
nobody.
Not right either.
And I applaud, you know, Kristen and her husband for getting up there and saying, we don't want any violence. Thank you so much for your support, but please don't take it out on these people that are potentially, you know, have knowledge of this case, because we don't really have all the information yet. So I agree with him. No one, including the coach's family, should be threatened or attacked. But at the same time, you're not making it easier on yourself by just hiding behind the cloak of asking for prayers for August's family and turning around saying our players are hurting. Nobody would be hurting except potentially August and the kid who put his hands on him. If y'all had been honest about what happened to begin with, you know, provided that what they are saying isn't the truth.
Right. It is sad to watch this play out. The school, the town, the businesses, the friends, the churches, all of it. And I mean, let's just be real. Nobody in their right mind thinks that should have happened to August, regardless of what happened. And I would venture to think that most people would say that, I hope, and that they didn't bring it on themselves, and that it's okay for the parents to ask questions. It's not okay to not file a police report when you're the police and you got called up there. Are you, like I said last time, if you are driving without a tail light, you're going to get a ticket. There's no warning. You didn't use any higher level thinking to go, I might need to write that down just because it's different. Because I go back to this lady, and I love her so much you don't even know her. But this lady said, I got 2 elementary kids, okay? They did something at school. She ain't proud of it. And they got basically put on, I guess, like suspension or something for 3 days. And they had to, had to miss 2 Little League games, okay? Now, whatever they did, you know it wasn't to the extent of somebody's face getting broken and skull and everything.
Right, because they were following, I think, the district's policy for discipline.
The same week. And these are little ones. So we know they have a policy. So A, you didn't even do your policy. B, you can quit getting butthurt over people asking you a question about something that this child was not a 3rd-degree assault. This is a 1st-degree assault. Look at his face. He has to sleep a lot during the day. His memories kind of coming and going, kind of sketchy back and forth. I think it's getting better. His little eye can't open. But I mean, you don't get to make the rules up as you go and just to be a blustery, big old, loud blowhard to keep everybody away from you.
Because you've decided that you're judge and jury and you know what's best for these students. When that mama and those parents sent August to school that day, you expect the school to take care of your kid. You expect them to be responsible and care about their safety and care about what happens to them. Every message that they've essentially sent to this family is, your kid's not that important.
Right.
What happened to him doesn't really matter. What we say happened is what's important. What we say happened is what matters. And you just need to sit down, shut up, and pipe down. Otherwise, you're going to get a snake picture thrown in your face, accused or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, remember they told my sister, they said, stop, just like this, stop talking about it. You are making it worse. For who? The people that are doing the wrong things. And even with my sister, they had the little girls that were being, intimidated by Randy, my sister's ex-husband. They made them sit down and write notes with the people over them, almost like an apology note to the coach for saying, I'm sorry I told someone that you were trying to be inappropriate in a sexual way with me. It's wrong. I've seen it before. If you do not say anything, you'll end up just like me, 15 years down the road, still trying to fight this.
Just because someone's in a position of power doesn't mean they're going to do the right thing.
Right.
If you don't speak up for yourself and document and fight for what you know is right, you can't necessarily trust the people in charge to do the right thing.
Well, nobody's an idiot. I mean, I'm thinking about putting all that, if you pick someone up, you bear hugged them or you chokehold or sleeper hold, whatever you did to them, picked them up and you couldn't hold him. And that's just from a fall, whatever.
Well, and what a BS thing. And you're telling me that coach just bought it? Because the other thing that we mentioned in previous episodes about this case is that there were 2 other employees, I think coaches, right there within 10 feet, because they were all walking as a group from, weightlifting off onto another building. But at any rate, that's when it all happened. And we're just talking about little teeny tiny steps, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
And they're trying to say, well, it was just horseplay or he was pestering him. So he grabs him and he's like, he fell. So basically, if it were up to Patrick Malone, apparently this kid just didn't mean to, and all this damage that happened to your son, sorry, but we got games to play.
Yeah. And
pray for us too, because our team is hurting.
Yeah, or I'm weary and tired. Of course, everybody's weary and tired, but my mind, being a pharmacist, is like, you know what, this almost seems like, for lack of a better word, overkill.
Well, he wouldn't let the reporter talk to any of the players.
No, they won't.
Said they had to go on back to the locker room. Well, okay, because from what we understand, maybe they've told those other kids not to talk.
Yeah, and I can only imagine if they've told them that and that's happening, their little stomachs are hurting, they're upset, they're
stressful
scared.
for everyone.
But give drug test. That all seems like steroid rage or roid rage to me, because people that are doing that kind of stuff. August was pestering him about him, I guess, dating a 13-year-old, and he's almost 18, like within months. And I don't think the boy liked that. That's why I think he scooped him up or bear hugged him or whatever. And then, so that turns into what happened with him there. His own daddy said he was pestering him. That's different than putting your hands on somebody.
Absolutely. Well, certainly the reaction isn't warranted.
Yeah. Well, I think all these things should be, because it isn't just the football team to me. There's something bigger than that going on there. And it's just not a organic thing. But with all of them, when they start being like this, when everybody circles the wagons and go, here's our story, that is called setting the narrative. And every case almost that we do, we come across that. The narrative. It's like, I told you how it's going to be, and that's how it is. That is why it is so important to have lawyers like Joe and other lawyers that'll go in there and fight for you, because you're weary after a while. You're trying to take care of your son, and now you're having to take care of all these barbs coming from outer space, and like, but we're friends. What's the problem? I mean, Kristen, his mom, August's mom, was a cheerleader at Deshler. She was homecoming queen, I do believe, and she got most school spirit. It makes me almost cry thinking about, don't you know this lady that loves her school, loves her community, loves her friends, loves her town, loves her church? This hurts her. She is hurting. She's not trying to set the place on fire. That is her place too.
Yes, along those lines, I follow Kristen's Facebook page and I see her posts, and she is hurting. I mean, it just breaks my heart. One of the most recent pictures that she posted of him is when he was in the hospital with the tube in his nose, and it's a close-up of his poor little swollen, beaten face. And she says, this is what happened to him. And then others that show support from other schools, including that August number 37 yellow ribbon. And then there's one that really breaks my heart. It's a picture that she says she took. Looks like she posted it on September 8th, and she said, I captured this photograph today, and it brings tears to my eyes. Witnessing the physical and mental anguish of our innocent child is genuinely heartbreaking. We're deeply grateful for the outpouring of love and support, with like a crying emoji. And it's August sitting basically on an examination table looking out the window. Looking like a sweet, handsome teenage young man with his cute little curly hair.
And his glasses on.
And his poor little bruised up face. But any mom can relate to that. Any mom sees not just the child that somebody else might see in front of their eyes. They see the little baby that they were, and the toddler that they were, and the elementary school kid that they were. And this is her baby sitting there that she entrusted to Tuscumbia City School District, that she entrusted to Deshler High School, that she entrusted to Patrick Malone. And this is what she got back. And they said, well, no, nothing to see here. Sorry he fell. Yeah. We got games to play.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and it's just, when you're on the wrong train, the wisest thing to do is jump off early. Now, I don't know who all signed up and wants that. Like I said, I want to believe, because I am from Alabama. You hear me talk about it till you're probably sick of hearing me, because I always talk about my people, my little sweet people. And I love the Gulf Coast here too, because I feel like it's almost Alabama too,
It is. It's lower Alabama. Yeah. That's the nickname.
Sweet folks, and I always depend on our folks, and we all do. But just doubling down and going, like, that really didn't happen. I made this little sign right here, and you signed it, and James signed it, and I signed it. Justice for August, number 37. Sheffield High School had made a big poster. I think one of the football players over there, they were just so frustrated. They're young. How do we show our compassion and support? Well, they made a big poster and they signed it. And one of them said, love from the field. That's boy talk, right? And so I got love from Pensacola. But anyway, that happened, and it was big, and they're wearing, like you said, big yellow ribbons that are tied like that. And that is August's favorite color is yellow. And I always think people that like yellow are
sunny
real
and
happy. Yeah. And so, but like this little round
yellow dot.
Yeah, it's a garage sale dot back there. And then nobody said it. I watched their social media. There is a post, and it's probably, well, you saw it with me. There's a post. It's probably 3 sentences long. And basically it says, be in prayer for our student, and et cetera, et cetera. Nice to put that there, but that was the only thing. We need to keep checking on and seeing what's going on. Or, here's the thing, it's almost like the golden rule. Would you be content to sit back on your hands if that happened to your child?
Yeah, I would not be content to sit back on my hands. Because if it can happen to somebody's child, it can happen to your child too.
There's something called the Yet Society, Y-E-T. You're eligible too. And when you learn that about life and things, situations like this, empathy is one thing. Sympathy is another. Like, I feel sorry for you. Empathy is like, I feel sorry, or I feel hurt with you, or whatever feeling you're having. So it's just been kind of it's just been a weird, icky experiment to me.
Well, it has. And to your point, what you're referring to, I just went to Tuscumbia City School's Facebook page, and they haven't posted since August 25th, basically when this really started to heat up with what was going on with August Borden. And this is their statement that they put out in a post. Tuscumbia City Schools is cooperating with the Tuscumbia City Police Department on the incident that happened on Tuesday, August 19th, 2025. This is currently an active investigation due to FERPA, Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act guidelines. We are not allowed to discuss information pertaining to minor students. Our goal is to aid the Tuscumbia Police Department and not hinder their investigation. Therefore, we will not respond to any social media posts. We continue to pray for the student who was injured and their family. We ask that you continue to lift them up in prayers as well. Thank you, Russ Tate Superintendent, who said he told the daddy I'd get back with you, and now you want to know all about my day, hour by hour. Which is not true, but obviously, dismissing
it was chest beating, and I don't know why it was necessary, but usually when we say stuff like that out of a smarty pants response, you usually regret it.
And here's another post that they posted on the 19th when August, quote unquote, fell. Please be in prayer for a student at Deshler High School that suffered an accident this afternoon. We wish the student a speedy recovery, and our thoughts and prayers are with the family. We would like to thank the personnel involved for their prompt response to the situation. I mean, talk about minimization and sweeping it, and keeping on.
Right. And talking about being inaccurate, because personnel,
accident?
Yeah, and personnel was not on the scene there. No, they just act like, oh, well, that happened. That is, I just can't even imagine someone can say that. But yes, I can, because I'm dealing with this thing for 15 years. Same thing. And it was sickening to me to see, because like I told you, I'm a scientist, I'm in the business world, and I know little yang goes on and stuff, but you learn real quick. You start with a lie. Our parents taught us that when we were little, and their parents taught them. Tell the truth. You don't have to keep doing all this, because this is only going to get uglier.
Yeah, it is. And especially now that more and more people are paying attention to it. And I am glad that Borden's family is seeking legal representation, and hopefully they will get some answers through the Madison County District Attorney's Office investigation, as well as any legal representation, whatever they may dig up as well. But I mean, to your point, if the truth isn't being told, and it seems like there's a lot of holes in these inconsistent stories, then we need to know the truth for August's sake. Right. Certainly his family does, and he does. But I think the community would like to know the truth too, because you need to know if you can trust the people who are claiming to be in charge of your kids.
Right. And who wants their town and their community falling apart when all it took was telling the truth? And because it'll be consistent every time. But also with August and all that going on, like I said, I keep thinking about his little heart too. And I think about, we've all been in school. It is the senior year for some of these folks. It is their football. It is their homecoming.
The senior year for the person who's accused of putting his hands on August.
And it's August's freshman year, his first year. This was only, 3, 4, 5, however many days into his first little year of high school. Excited, wanting to play football. They said he played the saxophone before and was very good at that, but he changed from saxophone to football. So here he is so excited there. And the fact that he doesn't have all his memory is kind of convenient for other people to spend whatever they want. He will get his memory back, I pray, and he is getting some more pieces coming back. But the cheerleaders, in all fairness, I believe the cheerleaders there at his school had made a little sign or something for him, and that made him feel good, because those are his friends.
Well, Pam, I appreciate it. Any other final thoughts before we wrap up this episode?
It just seems like it's turning into a big old, feature movie or something. It's kind of got the Kendrick Johnson vibes, the boy that was found in the wrestling mat upside down. And then it's kind of got some Alec Murdoch kind of vibes to me.
The small town, the connections, the don't look don't look over here, look the other way. Everybody's got multiple agendas.
Yeah, my little boy over here didn't cause none of that boat wreck or nothing. Look at something else.
Yeah, my little boy wasn't involved in the death of another young man on a highway.
Right.
It's the Murdoch case.
And a girl on a boat.
Yeah, good Lord. Okay, well, we'll continue to follow August Borden right here on Gulf Coast Confidential, and we appreciate you listening in and watching on the Gulf Coast Confidential YouTube channel too. That is it for Cover Up, Huddle Up, Tuscumbia, August Borden Part 3. I'm your host, writer, and producer, Molly Barrows, with co-host and researcher Pam Hill. A big thanks, as always, to our director, editor, and production engineer, James Roy. And remember, you can check out more episodes of Gulf Coast Confidential Confidential, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, or you can watch on our YouTube channel. Just please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. This episode is brought to you by Zarzar Law.